What's the worst thing you have ever seen someone you thought you respected do? I just watched my own mother steal candy from her 3-year-old nephew, whom she was babysitting, and eat it in front of him while he was crying. She wasn't trying to be playful with the kid. It's not like there was more candy where that came from. It was the only package my sister sent with her kid for a snack. My mother took it away from him and ate it while the kid watched and cried. When I asked what was wrong with her, she got mad and gave the kid a package of cat treats, and laughed while the kid tried to eat one, which he would have if I hadn't come to the rescue. Needless to say, I'll never let her babysit my kids. When I was about 15 years old, my friends and I planned on seeing the new Harry Potter movie the day it came out. My best friend at the time was collecting money so he could buy tickets for everyone, so I obliged and gave him money for a ticket. Later that night, my parents took me to the theater, and I was excited to see the movie with my friends. When I got there, I called my friend to see where he was, but he didn't answer. After about 5 calls, he picked up to inform me that he gave my ticket to someone else, and then hung up. Confused, I kept calling back until somebody else picked up his phone and started mocking me. Since the show was sold out, I had to call my parents back to take me home. How could anyone, especially my best friends, be so cruel? I was at an AA meeting the other day, and the speaker spent almost the entire hour talking about how his life had completely changed and how much of a better person he is. 15 minutes after the meeting, I saw him smash another car while pulling out, and then he just drove away. When I was a church-going kid, my youth pastor was a really cool guy that everyone liked and respected. He would always host pool parties and luau's at his house for his youth and their families, and he was generally seen as a fun guy and role model. One day, I heard him casually mention that his kids didn't want to take care of their dog anymore, so they took the dog away and left him by the road somewhere, far enough from their house so that he couldn't find his way back. The youth pastor very clearly did not see a problem with this, and seemed to genuinely believe this was an acceptable thing to do. I never looked at him the same again, and I can't think back on that without wanting to punch him. On Christmas a few years back, I found out my mom had been having an affair because my dad told me out of spite. His Christmas had been ruined, so why shouldn't mine, apparently. I didn't really get anything for Christmas due to what I believed was my family going through financial issues. But it turned out my mom had bought the daughter of her boyfriend all sorts of candies and treats, using the reasoning that her parents just divorced, so she probably is going through a hard time now. So then I called the guy and told him to back the F off of my family and not to do any more harm to my life because he had already ruined my Christmas and he was going to ruin my parents' marriage too. I don't think I was very threatening though. I was a 14-year-old girl, and I was crying the whole time. But he then started sending me harassing messages on Facebook, and started calling my dad and harassing him too. Once he called while I was at home, and I could hear him screaming through the phone, and he said he was going to drag my dad behind his truck down Broadway Street, because that's what he did with the last guy who interfered with his relationships. So we called the cops and filed a restraining order against this guy, and told my mom that she was legally obligated to stop having anything to do with him. A few months later, I found emails back and forth between them. Then my dad ruined our computer by trying to set up applications that would track and save anything my mom ever typed on it. So I'd say all 3 of those adults did the worst thing I've ever seen, and I respected 2 of them. When I had learned that half of my friends, in an art school no less, including my best friend, were raging homophobes, the latter was throwing rocks at gay folks during a gay pride parade, and expressed his desire to kill them or detain them far away from civilized people. Worst of all, I'm gay. When I was 12 or so, we were visiting my cousins down in Fresno. We were there for 4 days. About 3 a.m. on the last night, I was awoken by my brother screaming, "Sister is missing!" After about 15 minutes of listening to my mother crying, the cops arrived. Eventually, I found out that my uncle, who was in the Air Force, tried to R her. When she refused, he told her to get the F out of his house, and she ran away. I lost all respect for my uncle, who I previously looked up to, and gained some respect for my sister, who was strong enough to refuse. My mother isn't at all computer savvy, and wanted me to help her email her brother in Korea pictures of her vacation to the beach. I later found out that it wasn't her brother she was emailing, but the man she was cheating on with my dad at the time. My aunt, who is a really nice person, was living with my 96-year-old grandfather. She used to show up with brand new things, like a Mini Cooper, expensive fur, and shoes. Nobody said anything because she was taking care of the old man. One day my mom went to his house, only to find a mess all over the apartment, and my grandfather sitting in a chair with poop everywhere. It was clear that it had been a while since she checked if he was clean or since she took him to the toilet. When she proceeded to clean him, he said he did not remember the last time he had taken a shower and that it felt good to feel the water on his body. Can you believe this, Ish? That was awful. But the worst came when my grandpa fell and went into a coma. That was the perfect time for Aunt to go on a trip with friends to the beach. Grandpa died the day after. He would have been dying by himself if my father didn't leave his work and got into a plane to see him for the last time. Since that day, the woman doesn't mean anything anymore to me. She spent all his money on expensive crap and left him alone when his time had come. I hope she dies alone. I used to be really close with my cousin, go to parties together, hang out every weekend, talk about everything together, until we actually went to school together. I was not one of the popular people, so she acted like I didn't exist to not get embarrassed. Heard her saying things like I wasn't her real cousin, I was adopted, etc. That wouldn't have been so bad if she hadn't talked ish about me to everybody else in the family. I'm not exactly sure what she said, but I lost contact with everyone else. When I do see them out at forced gatherings, they talk to me as if I am mentally challenged, and if I mention anything about school, they act like I overcame obstacles. No longer see anyone, because the last gathering I punched out a male cousin who in a very disgusting way said, "X told me that you're gay. No wonder you can't get a girlfriend and no one in our family likes you." Needless to say, respect was not the only thing I lost. Edit. Just reread my post and felt like I should clarify that I myself am not gay. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm guessing that was one of the rumors that she spread though. I had an amazing professor in college, someone whose career path I wanted to emulate, someone who told me I'd be very good in his field. I took all of his classes, earned honors grades, made huge efforts to be participatory, even went on semester break travel for credit trips with him. At the close of my senior year, I scheduled a meeting with him to find out what academic steps I would need to take in order to have a career like his. At the meeting, he came on to me. I rebuffed him, and he told me I was neither smart nor dedicated enough to ever make it in his field, and that I should stop wasting his time. Not only did I lose all of the respect I had for him as an educator, I lost so much confidence in myself that I never wound up pursuing those goals. I have two elderly aunts, we'll call them A and B, who are like grandmothers to my siblings and I, and they went well and above and beyond what is necessary for someone. They both lived together and they never married, nor had children. All in all, they are utterly amazing people. Well, one of the two aunts, A, passed away a few years ago and had a little bit of money in savings when she passed. These two aunts come from a very large family and they have a number of other brothers and sisters. My other aunt, B, is on disability and lives with a very strict, limited budget. Yet regardless, she tries to do whatever she can to help people. Well, B's other siblings aren't as kind as her. They are filthy rich, and we're talking millionaire types. These siblings demanded, utterly demanded, that the money my aunt left went to them for some stupid reason. They harassed my poor aunt day and night for the money until my aunt finally relented. To this day, I will not speak nor interact with those siblings of my aunt. I don't consider them family, and I hope they all burn in H. How can one justify, when you're filthy stinkin' rich, to take money from someone with a limited income such as that? It just boggles my mind. I thought this teacher I work with was like me. I thought he cared about kids and wanted them to excel. But the truth is that he judges them based on their appearance and makes fun of them constantly. The first time he did it in front of me, I told him how classless I thought it was. I have no respect for him at all. I worked at a veterinary clinic in my teens, and the vet there was supposedly very prestigious, and even served on the board of veterinary medicine previously. So one day I was helping with this itty-bitty dog, like, say, Maltese or Yorkie size, for taking blood or something. And those guys with their tiny brains never hold still. They just fight you all the way. And as usual, we were struggling with it and doing the best we could to hold him still. So after a couple failed attempts to get the blood drawn, he just out of nowhere, like, backhands this dog, hard enough to knock him across the metal table thing he was on. Myself and the other girl holding the dog were just in shock. I actually ended up giving my 2-week notice shortly after that. Completely lost respect is putting it mildly. Glad I have a throwaway. I have had a great friend for 5 years. Earlier this month, I got dumped by my girlfriend, and she was a bee about it. She's this friend's girlfriend's best friend. My friend has been on her side, taunting me and insulting me when I feel ishy about the relationship. Last night, he had a threesome with his girlfriend and my ex. Texted me a picture of them making out and then began bragging about sex. Yeah, friend. We never had an argument for 5 years, and suddenly, bees. When my ex-wife and I got into a fight in my workroom, she picked up a mid-pipe from a car exhaust and hit me in the side of my head twice, knocked me out. She's a first-grade teacher who often gives talks about conflict resolution and nonviolent solutions to disagreements. When I was about 7 years old, I went to my friend's birthday party. I had saved up all my allowance money to get her something nice. At that time, Beanie Babies were popular, and I managed to get her a limited edition one. When it came time to opening presents and she had finally reached mine, I got excited. My face fell when she threw it in my face and said she didn't like it. Her mom pulled me aside later to apologize because I had been teary-eyed the whole time, and I felt a little better. Later on, when we all went outside to play games, my friend pulled me aside to apologize to me. I can still remember what she said. "Yeah, I'm sorry you got me such an awful present." Then she got her other friends to throw acorns at me. I felt so ishy. I called home and asked my parents to pick me up, and cried a while. Growing up, one of my childhood best friends had a pet rabbit that she adored and lavished attention on. Our families used to spend a lot of time hanging out at each other's cottages at various times in the summer and winter, and being a huge animal lover, that rabbit was always a fixture of those get-togethers for me. It was playful, well-behaved, and obviously loved and trusted my friend. Flash forward to when I was in my late teens, and I hear some news from my parents about my friend and her rabbit. By this point, she had the rabbit for about 8 or 9 years, but it was still in perfect health. However, one day, she apparently announced to her parents that she had decided she didn't want to take care of her rabbit anymore, but she also didn't want to give it away to anyone else, so she had decided to kill it. After unsuccessful attempts on the part of her parents to either change her mind about keeping the rabbit, giving it away, or at least taking it to the vet to be put to sleep humanely, she refused to change her mind. She took her rabbit out to the shed in their yard, started up her car, piped the exhaust into the shed, and stood stone-faced, looking in through the window while the pet she'd grown up with struggled, suffered, and slowly died. Needless to say, I lost pretty much all respect for my friend upon hearing that, and for her parents too, for allowing her to go through with that disgusting plan.